Okay, Kath, today we're chatting about product collaboration and what might be some of the things that are required to collaborate effectively so that we can create awesome products.
Well, the most important thing is that we're collaborating with more than product people.
Ooh, yes, that's true.
I think that's the key thing.
Yeah,
like
I like
it's
that.
cross-functional collaboration.
Yeah.
Because if you're just working within your silo, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. So the key ingredient, I think, really is the strategy.
Yeah, you've got to align people.
Yeah.
They need, well, actually the vision and the strategy.
Yeah, you're
They
right.
need to know where they're going, and then they need to know what are the guardrails, how do we get there, what are we focused on, and how do you align teams around that? And that way, really, your vision and strategy sets that.
And also what we're not doing.
Yeah, that's important. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
What you're not doing, and also what you have to stop doing. And that's
Oh,
the big
yes.
thing, because people are like, oh, yeah, that's not what we're going to do moving forward. But sometimes you're doing things that are taking you down that path today that you actually need to kill. And I think that's one of the most important things on aligning what you're not going to do, what you need to stop doing, and then how you drive forward.
Now, how do you stop people from doing stuff though? You're like mid-train and we're like, okay, well, we've got our strategy where we going down a slightly different path. How do you get people to stop what they're doing?
Well, you actually need to plan how you stop. You can't just say, break, stop. I think it's important that you actually have a plan around how you stop and how you, the same way you, about where you're going, the same way you align people around that plan on what you're going to stop doing and why you're stopping what you're doing. I think the biggest thing about surfacing the rationale of why, whether that be revenue objectives, whether it be customer feedback or other drivers for your business, if you're aligned on why you're stopping things, generally people can get on board.
And what would a plan look like? I know we talk about plans and people talk about lots of these things, but people don't kind of get what these things might look like and how would you use it?
Well, what are the key actions that you need to take and what's the impact of those actions and what's the timeliness of those actions?
Yeah.
And how do you align people around that? I think that's one of the kind of key things.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's important is that when you do have a plan with actions and dates and milestones, I think it's important to show that you're doing something and then report back to say you've done this.
And communicate it throughout.
Yeah.
And actually celebrate those milestones the same way you would on delivering something new. Actually, we're taking steps towards achieving the outcome that we set.
Yeah.
Whether it's killing something or launching something new, either way, it's taking you towards your plans and what you're trying to achieve as an outcome.
We've kind of got down the path of stopping, but I think stopping's like, it's stuff that we don't talk about. And it's really important to bring that up. But once we've stopped the
Once
stuff,
we're focused on the right thing,
once we're
moving
focused on
forward,
the right thing, how do you what's the next ingredient? What do you think is required to deliver on the strategy?
Well, I think you need to know, what does success look like?
Yeah.
How are you going to measure that? And then how are you going to align your teams around that?
Yeah.
So I think aligning your organization around the key areas that you want to focus on, empowering them within that and allowing them to really drive in those different areas. And again, cross-functional teams. How do you align those capabilities to drive forward?
Yep. It's understanding the capabilities required and structuring the capabilities in and organizing the capabilities into kind of fit for purpose teams that make sense.
Exactly. And sometimes that's looking at your investment profile, where you're going to invest, how do you move resources around, but also how do you actually group people together to get the highest performing team? Different people bring different things to the table. It's not as simple as a role.
Yes.
You need to look at the individuals and the team performance holistically as well.
And you also need to look at the types of capabilities within the team, because you don't want to just have a concentrated, set of skills on delivery, for example, and nothing around discovery. So you want to make sure that your capabilities are that there are no gaps, essentially, so that you can drive your strategy.
And I think discovery is such an underrated capability in product generally. I think it's one of the most important things. I mean, a lot of organizations focus on delivery, but really actually knowing you've got your strategy, but then working that through and understanding the outcomes and really what are the right problems to solve and how are you going to solve those and what will the expected response be from your customers or from the market? Like, that really is such an important part of product lifecycle that is really undervalued.
And I reckon the reason why it's undervalued is because there is no really kind of aligning framework to help you do that. So I think it's really important for companies to think about what a discovery framework might look like for their teams and making sure that it's nicely aligned to delivery as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the most important things is actually looking at how you actually look at the return of that. Because sometimes actually, I don't mean to focus on killing things, but killing the wrong thing early on means, it's a worry, means that you're actually then putting your investment in delivery in the right place.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important, aligning across communications through your GTM's team as well as the broader organization. So that's something that has to start broader than the product team early on, right through not just communicating what's getting delivered out the bottom end.
Yep. So ingredient 1, vision and strategy. Ingredient 2, capability and structure.
Yep.
Ingredient 3, systems and tools, our favorite.
Well, it's so important when you scale. Like, if it's just a couple of people, you can kind of have a little, like, obviously if you have some key kind of systems in place in terms of the way you operate. But when you're starting to scale and when you're looking at trying to do it across multiple products or multiple teams contributing to the one product, you really can't do it without some process and systemization. You need some level of consistency, both from a way of operating, so you can move your capability around as needed, but 2, so you can align the whole organization.
And, things change so quickly these days, and we're forever updating information, content, documents without the right kind of systems in place. My goodness, there's just multiple stupid version control documents that are really hard to utilize.
And I think the more you can use tools that help you do that, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, also the number of different data sources you have to ingest, whether it be customer feedback or analytics or any other kind of business data. Trying to pull that in and then attaching that to some of your core product work is really a powerful system.
And, in terms of the 4th ingredient, and it's something that we may not often talk about because we're so focused on probably simple things like the daily stand-up and the showcase, but is to have that kind of broader operating cadence and how the product pieces of work really fit into the business context and their business planning cycle as well.
Yeah.
Like the budgeting cycle and the board meetings and the board reports, investor days.
Yeah.
I know all about those.
Yeah. It's so critical connecting from the top down all the way through. Otherwise, really, you're not integrated into your business and you're operating in a silo. How you can communicate what you're trying to achieve from product, expressing kind of the key outcomes that you're hoping to achieve throughout the year, what's being driven by that, what return you're delivering in terms of the investment that the organization has made into product. If you're not able to have those conversations at the right time, then you're missing the boat.
And I think the cadence and almost a calendar is so important for product people because we've got so many teams that we're operating.
And so many stakeholders, Jen.
So many stakeholders. It's nice. I like a simple calendar that says, right, here's our quarterly planning sessions.
But also, you don't waste as much time.
Yeah. Thinking about it.
Yeah. One, you don't have to think about the 50 different people that you have to talk to.
Yeah.
You've got a clear cadence that has clear purpose. And then you also know what you need to do outside of that. So you're really focused. You engage with the rest of the organization at the right time. So then you can take them on the journey. But you also get your key inputs that you need to actually deliver what the business needs from the product.
And also, when I have an operating calendar, what's really helpful is that I know when to prepare stuff for.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing,
you're not firefighting.
You're not firefighting. You're thinking ahead. You're planning so that you can come to these sessions well armed and make sure that you get the right outcomes out of them. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time and money for everyone.
You're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to do that?
Well, because I'm lazy. Now, leadership, talking about laziness, leadership, I reckon, is the 5th ingredient.
Leaders aren't lazy. They're two L words.
No.
That's it.
No. I think it's tiring. Leadership is tiring. It's an ongoing practice. It's something that you can't stop and start. Otherwise, you're going to cause frenzy amongst the teams.
Yeah.
So the fifth ingredient of good product collaboration is good leadership.
Yeah.
Consistent, good, clear leadership.
Yeah. Well, the leaders ultimately need to provide the North Star.
Yeah.
Where are you heading? And what is the culture that you want to drive throughout your team? What are the practices? What are the systems? How do you want people to operate? How are you empowering them? What are the guardrails? What can they do? What can't they do? So really, if you're not setting that up as a leader and then supporting your team and managing your team through that, then ultimately you're going to have people going in all different directions. So you need to lead by example and then provide the guardrails for the team.
Yeah. And again, it's about balance. I think product leadership is really kind of tricky. And the reason why I say that is because, firstly, I think product leaders need to know how to make product.
Yep.
Because there is some
you need
leaders
to understand, you need to emphasize, and you need to kind of understand the core practice.
Yeah, you need to understand the core practice, but also you need to know when to lean in. For some folks who don't know how to do product, you might have to demonstrate and model good behavior, but most of the time you're coaching and you're guiding and shepherding.
And I think more than anything, at the right leadership level, you actually need to not lean in sometimes. And more importantly, it's kind of being able to actually focus on the Horizon 3 or the Horizon 2 and really empower your team to own Horizon 1.
Yeah.
And how do you support them? So if you can provide that longer term direction and align, especially in a large organization, business stakeholders at all levels and being reporting to the executive and the board and the investors, like you really need to be able to navigate at that level and across and really trust your team and set up your team well to be able to kind of deliver on the kind of first horizon.
And most importantly, though, you need to understand which level you're operating at, because you would say things differently to at different scales.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I think that's true in any role.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think at a leadership level,
clear about that.
It's a whole other level.
Yeah.
And I think, again, depending on the size of your organization, obviously that the way you do that in a startup or a scale up is very different to how you have to operate in an enterprise, and especially in a global enterprise when you're looking at different time zones, different cultures. That you need to be really mindful about how you navigate that and how you can use both your style but also systems and processes and kind of key tools like understanding your business operating cadence to really help you navigate that and represent you and your team and your product so that you're successful.
The sixth ingredient.
I'm not a chef. I'm not good at this.
I love it. Values and behaviors. I reckon that underpins everything. It's like the foundation. Yeah,
it's inherent in all the other ingredients. If you're not showing the right values and modeling the right behavior, then it's say what I do, not do what I say, or whatever that saying is. Actually, it's not true.
I'm not good with sayings.
It's not true. I think people ultimately look at what you do.
Yeah.
And they model that.
Yeah.
So if you're not modeling the right behaviors and if you're not actually looking at how you collaborate with your peers and your leadership, but also support your team, then really your team's going to follow that same behavior.
Yep, exactly. So I think as a leader, you need to set out what is acceptable behavior. And that comes from being very clear about what the values of the team and the business are.
Well, I think what's acceptable, what's expected, but also what amazing looks like. I don't think I think you can push your team to be amazing.
Let's go.
How do you support them to do that? Yeah, 100%. I think, and if you can lead by example and bring others along the journey and really drive that through your cross-functional teams, not just your own function, I think that's when you really have the recipe for success.
Cool. I'm going to summarize very quickly the 6 key ingredients for good product collaboration. Shared vision and strategy, the right capabilities and structures to operate in, systems and tools to make sure that you can scale your work, a capability model and a cadence so that you know when things should be done by, great leadership, and of course the foundations, known values, explicit values, guiding good behavior.